How y'all doing today? My name's Rob. I'm up here at Orm Hardware. I am here today in our Arcanum location with this store's new manager, Josh Piles. Josh, good to have you on board.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Tell us a little something about yourself, Josh.
New to Arcanum, from Brookville. Loving to learn about this community and what we have to offer them, and looking forward to growing with everybody.
Fantastic. Josh is being a bit coy. One of the things that Josh does bring to the table with his arrival here in Arcanum is his deck stain knowledge. Josh is essentially the in-house deck stain expert, and we're going to pick his brain a whole bunch here throughout the rest of this video. Before we get too deep into that, Josh, we're going to talk a little bit about the Defy product that we have sitting in front of us right here. Defy is a product that we've recently, as a company, grown into a partnership with. We're extremely proud of being a partner with Defy. Defy is a family-owned company, very similar to Orm Hardware, and they're also locally based, more so to this location than some of the others, as they're right across over here in Richmond, Indiana. Yep. So it's a pretty local company. It's a fantastic product. This is not a Defy sales pitch. This is actually just talking about deck stains. It just so happens that we're proud to be partnered up with Defy. So we're probably going to talk a little bit about their products, but a lot of what we're going to talk about can be generalized throughout all your use of stains. Yep. So another interesting point of note about Defy, I mean, I don't know how familiar you are, Josh, with Gary Sullivan. Gary Sullivan does have a home improvement show that's on the radio, and he's been around for decades. And when Gary Sullivan's talking deck stains, there's only one deck stain that he talks about, and that's Defy. I think that puts a pretty big statement out there about exactly how quality a product that is. So getting into the deck stains, before Josh starts pouring knowledge on us, when you're getting into your deck stains, you're essentially talking about three product varieties before you separate into oil and water base, and those are going to be semi-transparent, solid colors, and elastomerics. I'm going to throw a little bit of information down about the differences because it's important which one of those you choose as to what kind of status your deck has and what look you're looking for. When you're talking about semi-transparent stains, when you're looking to apply those, you're looking at a coverage that's going to essentially show off the beauty of your wood, while at the same time giving your deck a tone that you really wish it to have. And what I mean by showing off, the semi-transparents are going to allow the grain of the wood and the natural beauty of the wood to show through more so than the other two varieties that we're talking about. Yep. Leading this into the solid color deck stains. Solid color deck stains are essentially a paint like look on your deck. It'll hide some of the grain of the wood. It won't show off the beauty. Sometimes people switch themselves into the solid color deck stains out of semi-transparents when their deck is beginning to age and they want to get a little bit more protection and not be able to see how old that wood is. Finally, we get into elastomerics. Your elastomeric coatings, deck and dock paints, those are essentially a hard shell that goes put on the outside of that deck board. That's essentially for decks that are kind of on their last legs. They're moving toward the end of their life. There's not much you're going to be able to do about keeping them protected anymore. A hard shell that just goes around the wood. When you're choosing elastomerics versus solid color deck stains, please make sure that you're reading the back of your labels. A lot of the companies that offer those products are going to make you, they won't honor those warranties unless you cover all four sides of that deck board. Hey Josh.
Yes.
When's the last time you stained all four sides of a deck board?
Never.
No one covers the entire deck board. Sometimes it's impossible to get underneath that deck. So make sure when you're choosing a deck stain, you're looking at those warranties on the back of the products, because that's how some companies get out of honoring their product quality, by saying that you have to cover all four sides of that deck board. Okay, so now, Josh, we're going to start asking you some questions because there's some information I think you have that everybody needs to know about. Let's talk about, now that we've separated those three varieties, oil and water-based deck stains. Give us some examples of some things that differentiate those two product lines that's important for customers to know when they're choosing which direction they're going to go. And let's start with the windows of opportunity. I know that there is a window for oil-based deck stains that you have to mandate yourself be aware of, and there may or may not be something water-based. Tell me about the differences.
Actually, this is the point that this product actually stands out well above oil-based, just for the fact that you don't need that window of time where you have 3 days of dry your oil base has extended dry periods. You have to have it dry up to the point of applying it. When you have this water base, if it rained the night before, you can still go ahead and apply it because it's actually going to help it reach through the fibers of the decking.
Absolutely. And going along with that, Josh, when you are talking about those 3-day windows, that is basically the reason that August has kind of been identified as a deck stain month, because those are your longest periods of time without rain, when in fact, that's probably the worst month that you should be staining a deck because of the temperatures.
Exactly.
Is there something I heard about how you can determine how hot a deck is? It's too hot for staining?
Yep, if you could walk on it with your bare feet, you're all right. But if it's too hot to stand on, that is, it's not a good time to stain, just for the fact that your stain will actually be drying as you're applying it. Then you'll end up with lap lines as you are applying it, and it does not give you a good finished product. If you look at the market right now, all the money in research is actually going towards the water base, just for the ease of use. The benefits outweigh when it comes to reapplying, removing. It's just so much better.
Yeah, and I think somewhere along the lines, Josh, the term that I heard was zinc nanoparticles.
Yes.
And I am absolutely no way, shape, or form smart enough to understand what that exactly means. You got any input on that?
Yes, it's actually a very unique property, zinc, that was added to this, just as in your suntan lotion.
Just the Defy product that is?
Yes, it's exclusive to Defy.
Okay.
I haven't seen anything else on the market that actually has that. And what that does is it helps protect your deck from UV rays actually damaging the color that is actually applied to it.
Josh, touching on another topic that's pretty important as far as choosing oil base versus water base, we're going to talk a little bit about maintenance coating. From year to year, some products have to be reapplied. What can you tell us about the difference between oil base and water base as far as that reapplication process is concerned?
Well, actually, this is another point where it brings out the benefits of the water base, where you can actually maintain up to 5 different times through the life of that deck. So you can get up to about 20 years where you can actually reapply it with one coating, and it will come right back to its original color and luster. With oil base, that's a different story. You're going to have to use a stripping product to actually remove it before you actually reapply that oil base. It's a lot easier just to go with a good product that has protection in it from the sun, go up to 20 years. When you look at your weekends, they are very valuable. Do you want to spend your time putting on a stripper, reapplying another oil base, or do you want to just do a maintenance coat and get back to your weekend?
Absolutely. Those are good points, Josh. And as you're talking about those steps, it's pretty important for everybody out there who's choosing a deck stain to remember that you have 2 very important dates with any deck stain. That's your application date and your failure date. Everything you choose to do, it increases or decreases those 2 dates from each other. As far as what I'm talking about are your steps, like your cleaning, your brightening, your stripping, your maintenance coats, the whole thing. The more steps that you take, the further apart those dates will get. If you choose to start shortcutting, you're shortcutting yourself. The last topic that I'm going to talk about, Josh, is going to be new decks. Some people have new decks put up. When you put that new treated wood up, how long do you have to give that before you can start staining it?
Unfortunately, you're going to have to wait 2 seasons before those chemicals are actually dried out. Because of the way that is applied, it will not adhere to those wood fibers.
Absolutely right. That needs time. Those chemicals in that treated wood need time to mature themselves out of the wood, essentially, or into the wood in some respects. When you do allow those 2 full seasons of weathering before you go out there and stain it, you still need to clean it. You don't have to take significant cleaning steps on that treated wood, but imagine, if you will, throwing a white sheet on that deck for 2 full seasons, what that white sheet's going to look like. All that's happening to your wood. So you need to make sure that you do clean a treated deck after 2 seasons before you apply your stain. Okay, Josh, so we're getting ready to do our 3 steps of cleaning and staining the deck. But before we get into that, everybody that comes in here in preparation of cleaning a deck needs to make sure they're looking at having 5 things available to them to make their job significantly easier. They don't necessarily have to have all of these in order to complete their project. You're just really going to wish that you did, because it's going to make the job 10 times easier, right?
Yes.
Okay. What are we talking about? What are we looking for? What's the first thing?
Actually, I would start with the bucket. Get you a 5-gallon bucket, come over to my store, buy one.
This
A fresh one.
beautiful crimson and gray 5-gallon bucket. What's the number 2 thing we need, Josh?
It'll actually be a pump sprayer, which we have a variety of sizes that you
Pump
can choose
sprayer. This happens to be one of the 1-gallon ones. Josh, does this need to be an expensive one? Can it be a cheapo?
Whatever fits your budget, but a cheap one would be just fine.
A lot of people think these are going to be throwaways. These don't have to be throwaways. A lot of times the reasons they go bad is if you're pushing chemicals through these and you don't clean the seals and the O-rings, that's when that starts to fail on you. So just make sure you clean it up. They should last you a little while, even on a cheap one. But that's all we need, I guess, then, Josh, for the sprayer. What's next on our list?
Strainers. That way, any kind of leftover granules or particles will be caught and won't get clogged into the
Third thing is
strainer.
a strainer. A strainer just like this.
Yes, actually what that's going to do is catch any particulate that might be left over from the cleaner, and what that'll do is actually extend the life of your sprayer, keeping any foreign particles from clogging your hose.
Awesome. Number 4. What are we looking at for number 4?
Power washers, come see me for one.
Power washers.
Yes.
So most people, as you just mentioned, may not have a power washer at home. Where can they get one?
Right here.
So
Come rent it. You can get it for 4 hours if it's just a small deck. You can rent it for the day, the weekend. Just come talk to us at our rental department and we'll get you set up.
what is the 5th thing in the 4th that we're looking for?
Long-handled brush. That way you can apply it.
Long-handled brush, something like one of these guys right here.
Yes.
The soft long-handled brush. The softer the better. Or, I mean, can a brush be too hard, like a regular deck brush? I mean, what are we looking for? What are the benefits of this being a soft brush?
With this one, it's actually going to hold the stain to it. If you go with the hard bristle, it's just going to, your stain's going to drip right off.
Okay, and the way that I think is the best way to make sure that these bristles are soft enough, when you come in to buy one, come find Josh and do this to him. And that's how you can determine how soft your brush is. You're welcome.
Just keep that one in there.
Yeah?
Keep it off.
Yeah, we will sanitize this before it goes back onto the shelf. Oh, okay. So Josh, we've got our 5 items. We're ready to start get things moving in the right direction. What 3 main steps are we worried about doing in order to get our deck cleaned and stained?
It's pretty simple. Clean and brighten and stain.
Cleaning, brightening, and staining. Okay, so let's talk about the cleaning phase then, because obviously that's first. This right here is the cleaner. Josh, tell me about this cleaner and how we go about it. This actually feels like a powder, right? Is there
Yes.
a powder in there?
It's going to act like what people are familiar with, like an OxyClean. What we need to do is dissolve that in our bucket of warm water. That way it's fully dissolved before we actually put it in our sprayer.
We've wet them to death. We went ahead and sprayed that cleaner down on there. How long do we leave it sit there for?
About 15-20 minutes.
15-20 minutes. Don't let it dry though, right? You gotta make
Exactly.
sure.
You need to keep it wet. That way that action continues. Because if it dries out, it's going to quit working.
Okay, and how do we get the cleaner off?
Come see me for a pressure washer, or if you don't want to go down that route, we do have pressure nozzles that will actually clean off your deck. It won't be as good as our pressure washer. It won't have that pressure, but we have this one assembled by disabled U.S. veterans. So we got an American product, another American product.
Yeah.
So we got different options to get this project done.
Okay, Josh, so we're going to take a little bit of a left turn here since we got done talking about the cleaners. We're going to talk about the strippers. Sometimes you have a deck that you've either got a solid color deck stain on, or you have an oil base that you're trying to get all the way down so that you can move into the direction of a Defy or a water-based product. What product do we have to worry about now?
You're actually going to have to worry about this if you have any vegetation like ornamental plants or anything around your deck.
So this is not environmentally friendly?
It is not.
Okay, so we need to be careful. That sounds pretty powerful. Is this something we need to put into the bucket of water to get into the strainer, or is this go straight into the sprayer?
This is not diluted, so it can go straight into the strainer, or straight into the sprayer.
Straight into the sprayer, okay. And when we're applying this, do we need to, the common theme that I'm starting to notice is the deck needs to kind of stay wet through this whole process with the water base, which is totally backwards from how I grew up putting on deck stains. But does the same thing apply for this? Do you need to wet the deck down prior to?
Yes, what that'll allow the product to actually work its way through the wood fibers.
Okay, and how long do you leave this down for?
And this is going to be 15-20 minutes.
15 to 20 minutes. How do we get it off?
You could use the little big shot, but it's going to take you a lot longer to actually get that off, because this product is there to remove a pre-existing application, so the best result will come from a pressure washer.
Okay, so if you want to get off the stripper, use a power washer.
Yes.
Okay, Josh, so we've either cleaned or stripped down our deck. Right now, a deck owner's looking at their deck and they're thinking that that deck looks more beautiful than it has in years. They're ready to start staining it, okay? Are we ready to start staining?
Almost. You're going through all this work right now, so if you really want to get the best value and the best look, there's another step, and
Okay.
that is brightening your wood. And what that's going to do is open up the wood pores, and it's going to bring it back to that fresh milled look from when you originally put it together.
Why is that important?
Well, you want this to look good, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're going to go through all these different steps of possibly removing an oil base, you're cleaning, you're going to be living on this space. So why not make it look the best it can? And when you do this, what it's going to do is it's just going to make it a very big difference when you actually apply the color. And the color that you're actually picking out is the color that will show up when you actually apply the stain.
Right, so getting it back to that milled color is essential to getting it to look
Yes.
like the color you're choosing out of that.
Yeah, if you don't do that, you're going to end up with an off color.
Exactly right. And folks, like we talked about in the beginning, application date, failure date, all of these steps are important to make sure that they stay as far apart as possible. This is part of that. Brightening that wood up is part of that process. So how do we go about this? Is this a concentrate too?
Yes, it is.
It is, so we do need to dilute that then.
Yeah.
What kind of mix ratio are we looking at on this?
1 to 4.
1 to 4, so 4 gallons of, again, lukewarm water and then 1 gallon of this.
Yes.
Do we put this in our pump sprayer?
Yes.
So when we apply that, how long do we leave that? I'm assuming we have to apply it while it's wet.
Yes.
How long do we leave this one?
5 to 10 minutes.
We leave that on for 5 to 10 minutes, absolutely. And so I'm assuming we have to pressure wash this off?
No, just rinse it off.
Rinse it off with just the garden hose or whatever?
Yep.
Awesome, so we don't have to, can I pressure wash it if I want to?
It is fun.
Okay, sweet, I can pressure wash if I want to. Okay, so we are now basically done with our prepping stages and we're
Yes.
ready to start staining, right?
Yes.
So before we move forward into the staining, it's important to separate out the oil base and water base again, because right now we need to probably wait till that deck is bone dry if we're going to apply an oil base stain.
Yes.
Defy, what's the rule of thumb on that?
As long as it's visibly dry, you're good to go.
Okay, so we at that point, Josh, we are ready to start staining, right? What do we need to stain first? I mean, we've got our product, we've chosen everything. Best course of action, from my understanding, is to put your stain into a 5-gallon bucket like
Yes.
this. I do know that these guys do fit right down into that bucket, so you can actually just stain right off of that. You want to make sure that you're putting that on there. So, what are we doing first? What part of the deck are we doing first?
Best to go vertical before you go horizontal.
Okay, should we put some cardboard or something underneath those
Definitely,
verticals?
yes.
Why?
If you're messy like me, you know you're going to have some drips, and the best way to avoid messing up that horizontal surface is to put down a drape cloth, cardboard, something along those lines.
Absolutely right, and that's one of the things about water-based deck stains. It does show overlap, which also means that it will show those little circles that are dripping down off your verticals onto your horizontal surfaces. So you need to make sure you're protecting that from happening. So that kind of leads me into the horizontal surfaces, Josh. When we are putting that horizontal, that stain on the horizontal surface, how should we do that? Is there a certain number of boards we should be worried about? Should we go from end to end on the boards? Give us some advice.
What I would recommend is using one of these brushes with a long handle. Go ahead and put that handheld brush down. This is going to actually go really quick for you. You want to be between 4 and 5 boards, and make sure you start at one end and work all your way down. That way you have no lap marks, and then you just move over to the next section. And if you continue to do it in that way, it's just going to look great.
Okay, and how many coats are we putting on here?
You can do up to 2, but that's all I would recommend.
Okay, and when should we put that second coat on?
About 15 minutes after. What I would do is I would apply about 15-20 minutes after that first coat. That way it has an opportunity to soak in.
So we definitely don't want that to be fully dry. And I'm going to jump in on that one real quick, Josh, because I've seen this with oil base as well. If you do allow that first coat to fully dry, that stain and that protectant is already doing its job. It's going to repel anything that you put on there. You're going to essentially have either gumming or you're going to have some puddling happening. You just want to make sure that when you put that second coat on, you definitely are doing it when it's still a little bit wet.
Yep.
Okay. How much do we put on?
Just as much as the wood will absorb, and just make sure there is no puddling.
Oil brushes. What's the story with oil brushes, Josh?
Do not use them unless it's an oil-based stain.
Okay, perfect. I think that kind of covers as far as the actual staining of the deck is concerned, Josh. Josh, we're done with staining, okay? Deck should look pretty awesome at this point. I'm gonna guess that it probably does if you're using one of our better products out there. Let's talk about maintenance codes a little bit, because it's important for us to know when the proper time is to do a maintenance code. What are some of the signs that your deck is ready for a maintenance code?
Basically, when your stain has quit repelling water, when it rains and the water's absorbing into your wood, that's about time to actually do your maintenance code.
When we do put a maintenance coat on, are we talking about 1 coat, 2 coats, 5 coats? I mean, how many coats are we putting on a maintenance coat?
That's another benefit of this. You're only going to need one.
Just one coat.
With the thorough cleaning of your deck, you'll be able to go ahead and apply in the same manner of 4 to 6 boards all the way through at one time. Just repeat it, and you're going to end up with that same look that you started with.
Okay, and given the fact that we can do maintenance coats sometimes between 3 and 5 times, you're looking at potentially getting 20 years out of that original coating of your Defy water-based deck stain, as opposed to, let's talk about oil-based, every year.
Yep.
Every year. Trust me, my dad had me out there. It's every year. So that's another benefit of this. Okay, Josh, so wrapping some things up here a little bit, everybody wants to know the price point. I mean, that's probably one of the more important things that people are going to look at. What are we looking at for a gallon of the Defy?
About $50 a can.
$50 a can. That sounds to me like it's one of the more expensive stains out there.
Yes.
What about like a Thompson's? What are we looking at?
You're looking about half that cost, but if you look at how much you have to reapply it, that product is actually going to cost you a lot more in the long run, and not to mention cost you in time.
Absolutely, and I don't think that the quality that you're going to see out of the Thompsons is going to compare so much to what you're going to see when you get this Defy deck stain down on your deck. There's really no comparison, and there's nothing against Thompsons. I grew up using Thompsons. My dad wanted it on his deck every year. It was a decent product, but it's also somewhat disappearing from shelves at this point. It's getting harder and harder to find. I've heard rumors of them discontinuing, but it's a harder to find product now, and it's dated, and you don't get the longevity out of it. Again, we're talking about 20 years that you can get out of the original Defy water-based deck stain. It's hard to compare that when you're talking about pricing, because the money's in there.
Yep.
So that's kind of runs the gamut here, Josh. First off, I do want to welcome you, A, to the Orem Hardware family, and B, to the Village of Arcanum.
Yep.
As I have been very clear to you, this was my store once upon a time, but I can't think of anybody better to turn it over to, man. We're real happy to have you.
I appreciate it.
Everybody come in here and rub the brush on Josh's face from Arcanum. That'll be his welcome to the community. You're welcome for that one.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Josh, is there anybody you want to say hi to or anything before we wrap this up?
Actually, the whole Arcanum community, I look forward to meeting you, and come on in here and see what we have to offer.
Awesomeness. This video link will be on our YouTube channel, as well as www.oremhardware.com. We will have some links to some other deck stain websites and some other application suggestions as far as deck stains are concerned. You can find a lot of information on oremhardware.com. Josh, what's the phone number here?
937-692-8282.
Awesome. I thought you were going to trip up on that one. Okay, folks, that does it for us. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please remember that the Orem Hardware Company is your hardware company. Thanks a lot.